Hello. My name is Tim from Plugged Into Leadership, your outlet for leadership success. And you have chosen to join me on the show today. And we are checking out a leader worth knowing, Robbie Samuels. He is a coach, a speaker, and author of this great book called Croissants versus Bagels, which we're going to talk about later on in the show. And Robbie really helps us shift our mindset to become of a more strategic, effective, and inclusive person to grow and build relationships, great relationships, as we develop a more diverse and vibrant network. So we're going to talk a little bit about networking and all that goes with that. So welcome, Robbie, to the show. What would you say to the introvert, right? That's like, I just want to do my thing in my space and I don't want to have to think about networking, but then you lose a job or something like that. Yeah. Or you have this idea that you want to do and you're like, crap, now what? Like, I don't know anybody.
I mean, you just nailed the reason why we have to be doing it all the time. It's an insurance policy. And just like an insurance policy, we don't buy insurance hoping to use it. We buy insurance hoping to never use it. It's a small investment over time, and when you need it, it's there. And so that's kind of how I would think about building your community, building your relationships with the people around you. I also think that people approach networking in a what's in it for me. And the example you just gave, it's very clearly what's in it for me. When someone's desperately out of work and wants to find something, anything to pay the bills, then they're gonna, more likely approach networking in a I need kind of space. And no one likes doing that, and no one really likes seeing that and being the person on the other end of that kind of approach. So it's really important to actually be out there connecting people when you're not in a desperate place, because then you can come from a different mindset, and you may even think that there are ways to offer value as opposed to always asking. Right? You want to be constantly thinking about what offer can I put? It could be introductions. It could be showing someone how to use a really cool app that you love. I just found a great way to watch movies all the time in the theater. I don't want to mention the brand because it's like a little plug, but that kind of thing is I now tell everybody about these different things as I come up with them. That to me is a really easy offer, and it helps people feel a little more engaged with me. But I do want to address something, which is networking does make people feel dirty. And the study by Harvard and Northwestern actually prove that people feel dirty when they think about networking. It's a fascinating study. But the people who felt that way were doing that sort of transactional networking. And the people in the study who didn't feel that way were the senior executives who didn't need anything, who had a lot to offer, a lot of experience, introductions, different kinds of value that they can share, resources. So those people came in with a very different mindset, and they didn't feel dirty. They felt like this was great. I love connecting with people, love helping them. So I really think that even when we're looking for a job, which is a sort of a desperate moment in life, if you really think about it, to the hiring manager, finding the right person is a blessing. So why not frame, I have value, I have experience, I have enthusiasm. Let me share with you what it is I'm committed to doing. Go find those people who are hiring, be in the space with them, show them what kind of person you are, and then actually follow up, send a really good cover letter and all of those things. Man, that hiring person would be so happy to have met you and have that connection. So even then, you can really reframe it.
That's awesome. Why networking is good, and then maybe some first steps to networking, kind of what. So you've convinced me I have to network. What's my next step? Where do I go? What websites might I check out? And just the whole idea of the bagel croissant. Love that title of the book is great, but even your analogy that you gave to Dave was just awesome. It was one thing I was like, yes, I think I'm, if you look back in the archive, I might have stole that from you. I think I said, I listened to Dave's show and there was this guy on there and he used this analogy. And so I apologize if I didn't tell you by name, because I might have just not have remembered it at the time.
So to answer your first part of that question, I think what most people do is they go out to an event, whether it's a conference or a chamber event or a meetup group or some sort of networking space, and they get themselves there logistically. So they get themselves out of the house, which is often actually the first hurdle. They get themselves all done up. They know where they're going, and they get themselves there, but they haven't done any pre-planning. They don't have any sense of purpose. They don't have a goal. They're just not present in that kind of way. And they go through the motions. And if they're a shy person or an introvert, they may be hanging on the edges of the room. And, maybe they'll have a couple of nice conversations. Maybe they'll get cornered by someone who's totally obtuse to the fact that they want to leave. Then there are people like us who are a little more outgoing and or extroverted and like kind of willing to go into the space. Maybe we'll find ourselves in one of those tight circles and some guy's going to hand out his business cards. Then everyone hands out their business card and suddenly you feel like you're at like a poker game. You have a stack of business cards. You're like, oh. And then you get to the end of the night and look, if you're an introvert, you're kind of exhausted about an hour in and you maybe just leave, having not made many connections, maybe with a couple of business cards in your hand. If you're like us and you're extroverted, then you stay to the very, very end. Like I love staying. There's still people there, so I'm staying. So I'm stacking chairs and helping clean up because I don't know how to go home. And I got the stack of business cards though in my hand. And I get back and you put your cards on your keyboard, right next to your keyboard on your desk with really good intentions. And then life happens, and a few days later you move them to the back corner of your desk. You maybe even have a little box that you put them in because you want to keep nice and organized. It's becoming a bigger stack.
Yeah.
And then spring cleaning happens. You're like, oh, let me get a little Windex, clean this place up. And you take all the cards that are now spilling out of the box. You put them in a drawer. And you're like, okay, they're nicely organized. And then a year later, you find them in that drawer, and you're like, gosh, where were they from? Did I do the follow-up? What follow was I supposed to do? And so you take them and you recycle them. And you go that night out to yet another event, and you continue the cycle all over again. And so I just want you to stop wasting time networking. Like just get off the hamster wheel. Just stop
it. Don't stop networking. Just do it right?
No, like stop that. Just stop it. That's networking in the worst possible way, like by rote. No wonder you find that exhausting. No wonder you find you're not sure if that was worth it. Right. So I really think people can do less and get more out of it by being really intentional, be really choosy about the events you go to. So if someone says you should go to this event, whether it's a boss or a mentor, they're like, go to this event. I want you to choose to go to the event. I don't want you just to go to the event. I want you to choose it for yourself. I want you to be really present about why. I want, who do you want to meet? What do you want to learn? What inspiration are you looking for? What do you have to offer this space? And actually, my big tip for this is, Tim, write your follow-up email before you leave the house.
I think that is one of the key things that I've never done before. And so I'm going to implement that in my own life, but I think that would make a huge difference. So explain what may be in that email, or what are you thinking about when you're kind of writing that email?
So you've done your research. You have a sense of who's going to be there. Sometimes you know the actual names of the guests, and you can do a little bit of LinkedIn kind of search. You have either an actual person or an archetype of who you want to meet. And so you're writing the email as if you met them, right? And you're like, this is the kind of things that I'd want you to know about me and what I might want to ask for. You draft it. It gets your mind really wrapped around all the questions I listed earlier. Now, you're not sending it. You haven't met anyone yet. You're still home. But by doing this, it puts you in the right frame of mind. When you get home, you have this pre-written. If you track the priority cards while you're at the event, which means not all cards are equal, when you get handed a stack of cards in that sort of like poker game way, those should not have equal importance as the one where, you had a more engaging and, deeper conversation with someone for a few minutes, and you exchange cards and you're like, this is a person I really want to, stay in touch with. So you do things like Western culture, you can write a note on the back of it. You can turn the corner. The turn in the corner is like a nice subtle thing to do as you're slipping in a pocket. When you get home, you drop the cards on a table. The ones the corner's turned over, you pluck them out. You sit down. Now, the other piece of this, Tim, is that before you leave for the event, you schedule the hour to do the follow-up within 2 days of that event. You schedule it. You put it on your calendar. So if you pre-wrote your message, you track your cards, you schedule the time, what's the percentage chance that you're going to actually do the follow-up? And it's so much higher, right? It's like a no-brainer now. So, maybe there's only 3 or 4 that require that special attention. You'd write a personalized intro, a very specialized sort of ask. All the other cards I receive, I just do LinkedIn connections. Because if I send you an email saying just nice to meet you, and there's no ask, no wonder they're not replying. You didn't ask them anything. But if I send the same kind of nice to meet you note in a LinkedIn request, the inherent request is let's connect.
Yeah.
And at least they like are in my universe. But I will still send a LinkedIn note to the 3 or 4 people I've sent an email to, but it'll be more of a, hey, nice to connect. I just sent you a little email. Check it out and get back to me. In that way, we move the conversation through email as opposed to trying to like hope they saw their LinkedIn. Not everyone sees their LinkedIn messages. So that's how I would approach networking. Very different, strategic, really effective, and very thoughtful about how you use your own time.
And I think that's great. So is there a place that you've compiled some of that? So other than this video, and I know that you've done some other interviews, you've been on the Coaching for Leaders podcast, you've written some articles in Forbes magazine. Where else could people find or get some information that you just kind of laid out?
Are you giving me a little prompt to pull up my book?
I am. That is fantastic. So
yeah.
What's the book called?
So Croissants versus Bagels, Strategic, Effective, and Inclusive Networking at Conferences. And you're probably wondering about the title and this little croissant here. So as you mentioned, a lot of people have experience going to conferences or any kind of networking event, really. People tend to stand in these tight clusters, these shoulder-to-shoulder huddles that are impossible to break into. That's the bagel. If one person in that circle opens up their body language and makes space for others to join, that's the croissant. It's a very simple analogy, but actually, if you're new coming into a space, I want you to stop and scan the floor. Don't immediately go to the wall. Don't go to the corner. Go and scan the floor and look at how people are standing and go to the easiest openings. Don't try to break into those like really tough, bagels with locks kind of spaces. So there's a lot of tips in there. Because I do think we spend an incredible amount of money, time, and resources going to conferences. And the truth is, Tim, you don't need to leave the house to learn content. Content is available through so many means that you don't need to leave the house. YouTube videos are great, or like virtual summits or podcasts. There's so many ways. So if you're going to bother to leave the house, I really hope you have the intention to actually meet people. This book breaks that down really simply. I am an outgoing extrovert, but my book is based on a talk I've been doing for about a decade called Art of the Schmooze. And it was written originally for people who were shy and or introverted. So I have a lot of really sensible examples, tips, and strategies for people who aren't as outgoing as I am. Because I want you to be just as seen, heard, and respected when you bother to leave the house, because it's a big deal that you did.
Yeah, totally. That's awesome. Well, I mean, I think one of the things that I do is try to give away resources. So I would love to purchase some books from you, and I will make them available as some resources that I give away, because I think that it's a really solid resource. And just the information that you've given so far on the show has been really, really, really helpful. So, Robbie, where can people find you if they want to get in contact with you?
Well, I'd love giving out free things too. So I'm going to actually give everyone who's watching, listening to this, 10 tips for conference connections, which is a really quick little cheat sheet that you can pull up on your phone, kind of remind yourself, okay, right, what am I doing here? I've had people read the book on the way to the conference, but the cheat sheet's still really good. So I'll make that available to you. The link's going to be robbiesamuels.com/Tim Hull, so that people can find it really easily. And that way people can get that. They'll get on my list. They'll learn about sort of the other offerings that I do. I love the idea of you giving away this book. I think people will find it really valuable. And thank you. It's been a great conversation.
Awesome. So, I mean, Robbie is one of those leaders that everybody needs to know. So he's a leader worth knowing, and he's done speaking, coaching. He was explaining some of his coaching to me before the show got started. He's an author, as he just said, that he's got this book out. He does his own podcast, Schmooze.
Yes, on the Schmooze.
On the Schmooze. So you can check that podcast out. You can search iTunes, I'm assuming, and find that, or Podbean. And Robbie, thank you so much for being on the show today. I appreciate you and all the insight you've given us.
All right. Thanks, Tim.
All right. Thanks. We'll talk to you later. Hey, thanks for checking out the Tea with Tim show. You might also like this video. You might also like this video. And don't forget to subscribe. Monday through Friday, I'm putting out new videos about 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Check it out.